Welcome to Chinwag, everybody. We are very glad to have you back for another random meander through a variety of topics, and most specifically, Satanism.
Yes.
But before we do that, what do we need to encourage
But we should
people to do?
introduce ourselves, Steve.
Oh, okay. I guess that's kind of important. Go ahead. People know who you are.
I know. Do we need to? Everybody at this point must be just, filled with joy to hear our voices yet again.
I'm Carl Sagan, and I'm happy to be with you.
Nice. Very nice. And who am I? I'm, who the hell would I be? Carl Sagan. That's fantastic.
You're Aleister Crowley.
I'm the ghost of Aleister Crowley, and this is Chinwag, and welcome once again. And yes, indeed, we're going to be hitting the topic of Satanism today. But before we do that, we do want to say thank you for listening. Yeah. And always remember, please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a shout out. Give us the thumbs up.
Give us the 5-star review if you would. Give us a 5-star
review. Give us comments, whatever. And
it helps.
And send us comments, questions, emails, fan letters telling us how handsome and charming we are. And speaking of handsome and charming, Satan.
the adversary, Satan. That is our topic today.
That is our topic today. Neither one of us is an expert on this topic, but
that never stops us.
Show a surprising familiarity with Old Scratch, with Mr. Splitfoot, with the devil himself.
Mr. Splitfoot, that's fantastic.
Isn't that what they call him?
I never heard that. That's
Old
great.
Scratch was one name for him. Old Nick, the Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
The King of Lies, the Prince of Darkness. No, Prince of Darkness is Dracula, which I suppose is close.
It all blends together.
It does all blend together. All kinds of amazing things coming up in this exciting conversation, this exciting meander through the exciting world of Satanism.
Welcome.
This is high wire shit going on here. This is like high wire shit going on right now. Improvisatory. As if it's not all completely pulled out of our asses. Basically, it is funny. Satanism, Steve. Satan.
Yes.
Satan. The king of lies. What is it? The Lord of the Flies.
Evil.
But the Church of Satan, Satanism, I don't know if there's differences between Satanism, the Church of Satan, like are there different, like we're talking Satan today.
There's fine-grained distinctions to draw here, my man.
The King of Darkness. Well, it's interesting. I'll tell you, my one contact with the Church of Satan was back in my cozy little hometown of New Haven, Connecticut. There was a guy who used to walk around who professed to be a bishop or something in the Church of Satan or whatever they would call it. Yeah, an anti-bishop or whatever.
Did he have an outfit?
This is the 80s. So he looked like he was in Echo and the Bunnymen or the Cure or something. It was very gothy and very early gothy. But he was really this very kind of normal guy. But he did and he would dress sort of in black and stuff like that. But the thing that I really remember is he would wear this. I shouldn't be laughing because if it was my faith,
this is dark stuff, man.
Yes, this gets very dark. He would wear the priest's collar backwards.
Oh,
he would
man.
wear and he would revert. That was the thing I really remember about him.
Did he scare people in the community? Were you like, there's that guy,
For sure people were. And I was probably in high school. So I was, of course, intrigued by this guy, even though there was a part of me that was like, suspected he might be a bit of a charlatan. But still, I thought it was kind of cool.
Did you guys talk to him?
I had friends who hung out with him. I didn't.
Oh, my God.
I think I was too, like, we're gonna be killing a pig or something, aren't we? If we hang out with that guy,
there's gonna be a goat involved.
But in fact, I don't think anything like that was going on. In fact, I think Church of Satan.
It's totally different. Yeah, that's right. The Satanists of the old days, and like maybe you could include Aleister Crowley in this. They would use the symbols of paganism. So there'd be like goats and sacrifice and stuff. They were sort of into the magic pagan tradition, but Anton LaVey and that Church
he comes
of Satan
along
stuff,
later. Aleister Crowley is kind of like late 19th century, early 20th century, up to kind of mid 20th century. He's the sort of guy. And then you have Anton LaVey's the kind of Aquarian age guy, beatnik era guy.
Yes. And they get like put together like they're sort of part of the same movement. They're not really, because the Church of Satan is really just atheism. And it's just going under the banner of we're sort of like no longer under the sort of sway of the church and that kind of sheep morality. We're kind of like the Ubermensch, we make our own, truth kind of thing.
It's not just atheism, because it's like,
it's more than that.
Atheists always strike me as kind of sitting around, kind of dry, dull guys like sitting around. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like Lyndon LaRouche.
That's right. They don't have costumes.
Yeah, they're all kind of sitting around in like a badly lit, room in a having
playing chess. And
drinking bad soda and playing chess and stuff. But these guys, it seems more like it's the idea. I mean, for Aleister Crowley, his whole thing was, if I'm going to get this right, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That was their slogan, right? Awesome. That was Aleister Crowley's like credo. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And so,
it's the opposite of Christianity.
That's right. There's no constraints at all. There's nothing. Yeah. And but I'm always confused with him, whether it was technically Satanism with him or whether it was just his own kind of like crazy thing. I mean, he's this Victorian era character who
like Conan Doyle. He was in a club with Conan Doyle, I think.
Was he?
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they were in a club together, just secret society.
Well, he was one of those. Was he in that kind of club with him?
Yeah, they were in these kind of secret societies, not Knights of Templar, but they were like literary groups, super smart people. But also
book
like
clubs. They were book clubs.
Book clubs with sacrifices involved. No,
they were in a book club. Yeah, they were sitting around reading the latest bestsellers. But yes, okay. And he was that kind of like gentleman. That he was from that kind of background. He went to like
totally
Oxford,
upper class. Yeah,
upper class guy, at least upper middle class kind of guy, and he got into all of this. I mean, I think it's paganism, and also I think like Eastern mysticism, what they would have called Eastern mysticism then.
Esotericism.
Which would have been really exotic and would have been sort of, to people, this kind of exoticizing Tibetan mysticism.
That was really big then. That's when like that stuff developed. We've talked about this before, the Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society.
Right.
So it was like, people were really smart. They were really into like Egypt and pre-Christian iconography and Hermetica. So they looked at these traditions from ancient Greece and Egypt where you mix together like Hermes and Thoth or something, and that creates this magic tradition.
Yeah, right. They made up their own sort of.
This.
Yeah, I know. Where the fuck are you getting this from? It's like Thoth and Hermes, but they kind of made up their own system. He really made up by drawing in a lot of different things.
Yeah, and then what's weird is he had some big influence at the time, but also like the hippies, like.
That comes later.
Led Zeppelin,
later
went back and bought his house or something. They were really into
Jimmy Page.
Imagery and stuff.
Jimmy Page maybe still lives in his house. I know I haven't talked to Jimmy Page in a while. We haven't been in touch in a little while. I need to reconnect with Jimmy Page. He hasn't invited me over in a little while to come hang out by the pool at Aleister Crowley's house. The pool filled with blood.
The pool at Aleister Crowley's
with Jimmy Page and the gang. But he drew in like yoga and stuff like that. And this is before these things had become, I mean, he, like you just said, he kind of created something that then became really, that was a big part of the kind of hippie Aquarian thing, the beatnik thing, all this sort of like, and I remember once I had a friend, I have a friend. I actually, besides you, I actually have another friend.
You have another friend?
I do. And she, I remember, I had these books and she was like, what's the deal with you and like this being interested in all this stuff? And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's fascinating. I mean, and she was like, isn't it basically you just kind of trying to like kind of take a dump on your middle class existence a little bit, which is kind of what he was doing, wasn't it? In
the rebellion. Yeah. I think that's right. He's like raised very stiff upper lip, you know, Christian. And then he, like all these guys were counterculture. They were like hippies before the beatnik and hippie movement that we recognized in the 60s. And I think that's right. There's something about rejecting all the constraints of like morality that your parents raised you on. And so you're just going to go to this way other thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was, I think you're right. Crowley was not technically a Satanist, even though I think he's using some of that iconography and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think he officially says he's
No,
a
I think
Satanist.
you're right. It's a pentagons, which is it?
Pentagrams?
No, not pentagons. It's a pentagram. The pentagons a whole other fucking hotbed of
geometry.
evil. Hotbed of evil and vice.
Get your sigils right, man.
I'm sure so. Wow, sigil. That's a good use of that word. But the pentagon must have some, if a pentagram and a pentangle are evil, the pentagon must have some evil symbolism too.
Stay away from it. That's what I'm saying is.
I mean, there's all kinds of weird thinking about like that with like Washington, D.C., isn't there? Like, isn't there a whole thing about how Washington, D.C. is laid out? Is this whole Masonic conspiracy?
Really? No, I hadn't heard that.
The civic planning of Washington has some sort of the harmony of it is Masonic.
Is satanic? Oh, it's Masonic.
No.
Okay.
It's Masonic, which to some people would be satanic. I mean, some people
satanic.
See the Masons as being evil, but it's something to do with that. So I don't wonder that. I'm sure there's.
You did this whole show, like Lodge 49, that was like about secret societies, which is a fucking awesome show.
Thank you for mentioning the television show Lodge 49 and giving that.
It is a great, and you guys get into that stuff too. These like crazy like secret societies, but then when you research them, it's like you can't find much about them because it's all oral.
They're secret. They're all that's true. They're all secret, which is the point. So it maintains the mystery. But I always maintain with those things that, you know,
nothing's really going on.
Probably nothing all that interesting is that donuts,
book club,
chess, donuts, book club.
my dad was in the Knights of Columbus, which is like the Catholic secret society.
Right, yeah.
And he was like sworn to secrecy. He couldn't tell me about the initiation.
Yeah, sure.
Then finally I got it out of him, you know.
Right.
It was like super mundane. They would sit around and drink beer and talk about their wives or whatever.
Totally.
It was like nothing really.
No, we have a rum fruitcake occasionally to really spice things up. No, definitely. The Knights of Columbus, I was always, so it's a Catholic one.
That's a Catholic version.
Anyway, I was going to say more about Aleister Crowley, although I think it might be Crowley. I'm not
Crowley.
so sure,
I bet you're right. It's
Crowley,
I think.
But I'm not going to bother.
It doesn't matter to us. Let's not stand on tradition.
I'm not going to bother with that. Aleister Crowley. He was super interesting too because he would adopt these different personas through time. I mean, it's very weird when you see pictures of him. He looks totally different every time you see him. And he would take on different names and he would take on different sorts of personas and stuff like that, which is really strange. And I remember I read a biography of him and I remembered thinking, I think in some basic way, this guy was a brilliant actor, is what he was. And that at some level, his ability to completely control the reality around him. And it's really interesting to me because I remembered thinking like, oh, that's magic. That's magic. This ability to force reality to change like that through the sheer ability to just get people to believe differently is magic in some weird way. It's like, and so in a weird way.
He's using psychology. But you're right. It's the same idea in magic, which is you manipulate the material. Like the main goal in magic was to change like base metals into gold, like that alchemy thing.
Is that the original thing that everybody was trying to do with magic? Going way back, going back to did the Egyptians do that stuff?
No, there were two things they wanted to do primarily, although it went in all these different directions. One was make gold, and everybody wanted to do that. Even Isaac Newton wanted to do that. And then the other was even weirder, which which appears in one of the great, speaking of Satan, the great stories of a deal with the devil is Goethe's Faust. And in there, it's especially in the second Faust, the idea was to make a little homunculus humanoid.
Right.
That was like a major goal of the magic tradition.
And what is so
and
that's
make one.
To have the ability to create life.
Yeah, sort of like it's like what Frankenstein eventually became.
Right.
These guys were trying to do that, make life. Yeah.
So you were God, you were creating life.
Yeah.
And I wonder what was the goal with this little guy? You make this little guy.
That's a good question.
And then what the fuck are you going to do with him? Does he grow? And it's a miniature man. It's not like a baby or anything like that. It's a
like
miniature man. That's so weird.
He does your bidding. He goes out and gets you like whatever you need, man.
But he's 2 inches tall. He's like, the fuck is he going to do? You have to make an army of these things.
Or you grow him.
Yeah.
There's a scene in one of the Frankenstein films. It's not the first one, but it might be the second one where they're making the wife or something, and they make a a little homunculus. They make some homunculi.
That's wife of Frankenstein. You're talking about wife of Frankenstein.
Bride of Frankenstein.
I'd like to call it wife of Frankenstein. You're right. There's a whole weird homunculus. Yeah, it's really weird. It's very strange. Yeah, he's like in a little jar and stuff like that running around.
But that deal with the devil thing is like a common cultural trope. Like part of blues lore, that you want to get really good at playing the guitar and singing, then you go to the crossroads and you make a deal with Satan, and then you become really good at something.
Super powerful. Yeah. So I guess that was a sort of, I mean, Crowley in some way was claiming that he was sort of drawing on that kind of power. I think he did do stuff like try to summon demons and stuff like that. I think so. And it's where you get into a lot of this, what I'm going to call sex magic.
Yeah, use like I'm
gonna get
very white kind of voice.
I'm gonna let things get a little bit. I'm gonna get things get a little after hours. Chinwag after hours. A little chinwag after hours. We're gonna start talking sex magic. And for our friends in England, this advertisement.
And now, more Chinwag.
I think I had somebody once again. I have another friend. This is not even the friend I was talking about before. I have another friend who was into this sort of stuff. And she was always talking about, Wiccan stuff. And she was into lots of really interesting stuff. But she said to me that the K at the end of it, because you see magic spelled this way, especially in this context, when you're talking about kind of real like ritual magic like this, it's M-A-G-I-C-K. And the K, for some reason, is some sort of, it represents for some reason and in some way the power of the phallus, I believe.
I did not know that.
I think so. That it's giving a connotation for some reason of like sexual potency and power and stuff like that. The letter K. Just so, I'm now, once again, this is something I was told by some hippie I knew in Seattle.
Well, I'm going to take that as gospel, my friend.
Okay, so we're going to
good enough for me.
But I think our mission is really clear on Chinwag, which is to spread as many lies as possible. Which reminds me, actually, I knew a guy. I cannot believe. My life sounds so sketchy when I start talking about
this guy at a bus station.
I knew a guy in Seattle. Seattle was a weird place in the late 80s, early 90s. I knew a guy who ran an herbal apothecary. It was called the Tenzing Momo? It was called something, and it was it had this Tibetan sort of, and it was this extraordinary place. It was very old, and it was just filled with millions of these jars that had fucking, mandrake root and shit in them, licorice bark and shit, and it was all just like boiling down elderberry pulp. And it was just like rub this, make a poultice of vanilla bean and mercury and blow it up your nose and and it was all this, all this kind of amazing stuff. And this guy who ran it was this very old guy, pretty old guy. named Jeffrey, who used to sit in the back of this place. And he would kind of sit back there. He had a little skull cap and little glasses and little granny glasses, old hippie. And he claimed to have been friends with Aleister Crowley.
Oh, really?
And that he hung out with her. And then you realize Aleister Crowley, I think, lived into the 60s. And so this kind of Victorian era character was living in the 60s and hanging out with these hippies. And
wow,
I used to
didn't know that.
Yeah, I used to go sit in the back room with this guy, and he would just tell me about all
Magical
kinds of
Jeffrey.
shit. Magical Jeffrey with the fucking potent potions and everything, sitting back there telling me a little bit about it. I don't remember much about, but he always told me I should play Aleister Crowley.
That would be a great part. That would be fascinating.
It would be. But as I say, ultimate actor. I do think that he was kind of a genius actor. That's what he was doing. He was sort of changing his reality by changing his personas.
Well, it is interesting that a lot of these guys,
and again, that's very unchristian. That's very
that's what I was getting at.
Everything,
Yeah, they're this magic K phallus connection is interesting because
Special K
Crowley thought that his mission was not just to throw off the shackles of oppressive morality in Christianity, but also to celebrate like gender diversity and sexual diversity.
Right. Yes.
And there isn't just male and female.
Yes.
There's like a mix of these.
Yes, for sure.
And you see this in Anton LaVey's stuff too, like in the Church of Satan.
Yeah.
They're all about like getting rid of the binary of any kind, like all binaries. That's kind of a magic tradition.
That's
so
cool.
They'll celebrate the phallus. And this reminds me in Cambodia, they have, and in India, they have these giant penises everywhere. And you're like, what the fuck is that? And they're like, that's the lingam, which is a symbol of Shiva. But they also have one for females too. It's called the yoni, and it looks like a uterus or something.
Yes, looks like a big
and
donut.
It's in the temple. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's in the temple.
Yeah.
It's not like opposed to religion. It's part of the religion. And I think they were trying to get that stuff going.
Yeah, and a lot of I think that's a really good. That's totally right. They were eliminating like dualities, the good and evil. No, none of this. All of this stuff. There's just one. It's a constant flow of things and change and things changing and things being changeable and chaotic.
Yeah. Do you ever see there's that wonderful image that they all use, which is the Baphomet, which is like, it's a goat and he has, he's got like, it looks like it's part male, part female. So it has breasts, but it looks male. So it's supposed to be both. Yes. And it has one hand up and one down. This is on tarot cards.
Yes, that's right.
And it says like bringing together and breaking apart in Latin, like on either arm. So it's like everything is this process of something coming together, then breaking apart. And that's like part of their, and then they use that Baphomet. When people see that Baphomet, they're like, oh my God, it's the devil.
Right.
But it really means more of this other thing too, this much more complicated story.
It's not evil necessarily.
Right.
That's cool because, and again, I would assume that's like a Western symbol, Baphomet. He's a Western character. He's not like, you know what I mean? Like your Western European tradition character.
Yes.
Because it's the same kind of idea, again, I gather, behind the idea of something like Shiva in Hinduism.
Yeah, I think so.
It's being created and destroyed at the same time. At the same time, it's coming into being and going out of being, which is a little different than what you're saying. I mean,
it's very similar though. Like you got the Shiva's the destroyer, and then like Vishnu's the preserver, and then there's Brahma, and Brahma's the creator. Brahma creates, Vishnu preserves, Shiva destroys. You need all of them. But it's sort of like the yin and yang, or the yin and yang in Chinese philosophy, where you have these opposites. Everybody's got the tattoo of the yin and yang symbol
for sure.
them,
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's like, everything is sort of interconnected and interwoven.
And it's and then you have the symbols like in Tibetan traditions of the what is it called? The when you literally see a conjoined male and female, they're fucking, they're having sex. It's like it's a kind of
icon,
yeah. It's a sort of and again,
Yabyum.
Yabyum.
Yeah.
Which is right.
That's awesome.
Right. That's in
Oh my God, we're learning things here.
Yeah, we really are learning things. And but I remember reading about that, and what's the name? What's that fucking who's that hippie guy? What was he? Jack Kerouac. It's like there's a lot of that in the beginning of for Christ's sake, what's that book called? Not On the Road. What's
On the Road?
Not Big
Dharma.
The Dharma Bums. There's a lot of bums. They're doing a lot of yabyum in that.
I think the Beats really got into Buddhism, and I think Kerouac was raised a Catholic, and then he was, and he wanted to throw off a lot of his Catholic, oppression or whatever. Yeah. And so I think he was really drawn to Buddhism, and then people like Ginsberg too. Yeah. And they were kind of like back to nature.
It's amazing how through guys like these people, these figures like Aleister Crowley and stuff, this stuff gets really woven into, you can't, it's really interesting.
Somebody was saying that even now, like, now I don't know if this is true, but if you look at some of the kind of fashion that Beyonce and Jay-Z are wearing, you'll see they have like a shirt that has that slogan. What was the slogan you said of like,
do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah. I don't know as much about Anton LaVey and all that stuff. All I know with him is things like Sammy Davis Jr. was like hanging out with Anton LaVey.
Come on.
And like, I think so. And what's her name? Oh, come on.
He was a musician. I know that.
Anton LaVey was?
Yeah. I think
was he originally one of these guys who was like a lounge singer or something? And then
I don't know. I sort of picture him like he was kind of like a folk singer, but I have no idea.
You're thinking about Manson. You're thinking about Manson. No, that's Manson who was a folk singer.
I think LaVey was also like making records, but
did he really?
Yes, our listeners will correct us. They will write in and tell us.
They sure will. I hope so. I hope somebody will come in and write
somebody
this shit.
Clarify for
somebody
us. Yeah.
Get a fucking pilot in the wheelhouse. Get a pilot in the cockpit somewhere. Jesus Christ. Just careening around. It's just nuts.
But how does Sammy Davis Jr.
Well, no, I just think he was one of these guys. He was one of these guys again. It's this idea of like you want your religion to prosper, go to Hollywood, hang out. It's like L. Ron Hubbard. Disclaimer. I'm not a Scientologist. We're not. I have to do a quick disclaimer. I don't know what I'm talking about Scientology, but I think that was a part of his thinking. Was like, famous people will be able to sort of spread your word around more effectively, that it's like you hook into which.
And that is located in California, right? That is where the Church of Satan is housed, I think. Maybe it's Hollywood even.
Oh, is it? Is the Church of Satan?
I'm pretty sure.
Can I just like,
They got a website.
Can I pick up my phone and dial and on my rotary phone and dial the number and get the Church of Satan on the line and just be
get their newsletter,
leave a message on their answering machine? Like, can I?
They have a website.
They're out there, so they're actually still functioning as a formal Church of Satan.
One thing they did recently, which is really kind of cool. Did you see that? They put a giant statue.
That's right. What was that? What happened with that?
Well, that was we were just talking about the Baphomet image, and then now I suddenly realized they made a statue of that guy, which is the goat creature. Yeah. And then as a way to protest, like, Christian fundamentalism, they wanted to sort of say, look, we have to have the separation of church and state. You can't just put the fucking 10 Commandments on the
if you're going to
Capitol
do that
building.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're going to do that, well, you got a satanic dude here, and you can't stop us because, if you're letting the one in, you got to let the other in. They have, every once in a while, they have these parties where they bring it to a Capitol and they put it up, and it's like a huge shebang.
So we got to go to one of those, baby.
Yeah, that would be great.
We got to get to the next one of those. So
invite us, people.
Yeah, please. Oh boy. That you just made you might have made a really big gambit right there. You just made a big move.
I laid
check and mate. Invite us. But there's no permanent statue. Somewhere there isn't like in, I don't know, out in like Spokane, there isn't like I don't know why I picked Spokane. So there's not that kind of thing. That's fascinating to me. Oh my God. It's like the interesting thing is to go way back to Satan, to go back to like original Satan. And the idea that, like, I think it's in, you're going to know this better than I am. I think it's in the Gnostic tradition, which was this, you're going to have to talk about, you're going to understand this shit better than I do, exactly who the Gnostics were and stuff. But I think in the Gnostic traditions, like the snake in the Garden of Eden is not, it's not that he's a good guy, but that he's not evil exactly.
Yeah, right.
What's the deal with all that, Professor?
Yeah, the Gnostics are like some of the earliest Christians, and their view of the Bible, they're very influenced by like Persian ideas of Zoroastrianism, and this influences these magic and satanic traditions too. But they think that the God, there's two main powers. Mm-hmm. One is all good and one's all bad. Mm-hmm. They're fighting out a war.
And this is the Gnostics believe this.
Yeah, the Gnostics believe this. And then the all the good is like the spirit realm, and all the bad is the flesh, the body, the flesh, the physical world. Mm-hmm. So the evil God makes the world. So the Gnostics think that Yahweh from the Old Testament is actually the evil power making the world in Genesis.
Who creates the material world.
Yeah, and that's going to keep pain and suffering going. And while he's doing that, the good God puts a little spark of the divine into each one of us.
That's he can sort of barely reach us, is the kind of, right? He's like, he can't quite contact.
He's sort of losing and
Right,
And so what we have this, the Gnostics think that the material world is a mess, although most traditional Christians think that too.
Yes.
And so do atheists. And the soul is trying to get to God.
Right.
And so, they had this very different view, and it was popular, but it got kind of quashed and went underground. It became like you said, the shadow.
Right, it becomes the shadow narrative. Yeah. And so the snake, the serpent in the garden is giving you spiritual knowledge, or just knowledge at all, is something that's going to free you from the material world?
Yeah, this I don't know enough about to say much on, but it makes sense. And
why is that going to stop you, Steve? Why would you?
That's true. Let me go ahead. What I think it means, Paul, is this: that you have a lot of the bad guys in the Bible, in the Gnostic tradition, are actually the good guys. It sort of reverses out like that. The Greek Orthodox writer Kazantzakis sort of argued something like this.
Right? He's the guy who wrote Zorba the Greek?
He did Zorba the Greek, The Last Temptation of Christ.
That's right. Yeah, is that in that? But he's kind of talking about the human in that book. That's a novel that he wrote, Nikos Kazantzakis, right?
And then there's a movie too,
and there's a movie film. Which is have you ever seen that movie?
I did see a long time ago.
It's
comment.
I
just don't.
Oh, it's a blank. You mean it's just a blank? You're not.
It's a blank.
That's not an aesthetic judgment on it. You're not just like can't talk about it because it was traumatic or something, or it was
it's just a blank.
Such a piece of garbage you don't even want to go there. It's just a blank. Well, I remember it, and I do, and it's great. There's a lot of great stuff in it.
Is it?
But it's very funny because it's all like Harvey Keitel, I think, plays Judas,
and
it's all just him. It's all just him. Like, Jesus, I want to kiss. Let me kiss your cheek, Jesus. It's really hilarious. It's great, and you're like, well, probably closer to what it was like than anything else. I always remember my father saying, my dad was a medieval scholar, and I always remember that we saw when we were kids. He took us to see Monty Python, The Holy Grail.
Oh yeah,
and he was like, that's probably a more accurate depiction of what it was actually like. And in fact, I don't think he was wrong. In fact, I just was reading something about how this is a real tangent. You got to remind me of how to get back to where we were. Okay, but you got to remember about how to get back to where we were. But I just saw something in the paper about some joke book, some like medieval or even older, Anglo-Saxon maybe, Middle English joke book. It seemed to be the kind of notes for a bard. It was a bard's sort of notes, and they found them and translated them. And essentially these bards would travel around from like tavern to tavern, and they were like stand-up comedians. And what they discovered in this thing and translated were what were probably jokes. that he would tell. So it was his notes that were like, I'm going to tell that. And one of the
like
jokes.
Fart jokes.
Yes. And then there's a lot of fart jokes. Actually, there's a lot of fart jokes. There's all this stuff about that's just like, when the Miller gets uncorked, there will be strong winds for the entire season. It's all just like, it's all these fart jokes. But there's this crazy joke about a giant rabbit attacking and killing people.
Holy shit, really?
People are hunting rabbits. Yeah, it's in the Holy Grail where there's the killer rabbit.
Oh my God.
And apparently killer rabbits are like a thing in the Middle Ages. Yeah, because I think the joke was this harmless little thing. Oh my God, what if it turned around and killed you?
Yeah, I thought Python invented that, but it sounds like it's a tradition.
Maybe they did, but it turns out that it was actually a thing. So that stuff was my dad was like, that stuff is probably closer to what it was like. Just this fucking weird chaos and people just like, fucking stabbing each other randomly and weird
when the
shit.
Miller comes
yeah, and just random, or whatever it was, it was something like that.
We'll be right back.
And now more exciting Chinwag.
Where the fuck did I take that from? Why did I just
I don't know how. Okay, I can get us back, kind of.
Good.
There is because we were talking about Satan too. The whole medieval world is afraid of these, satanic images, and they're all about trying to keep virtue as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Satan in the Bible, mm-hmm. like one of his most famous appearances is in the book of Job. And mm-hmm. there he is he's not the bad guy because he and God are hanging out. Oh. God and him are hanging out, and God is saying, look how great Job is. And Satan's like, well, yeah, but he's got everything. He's rich, his wife's pretty, his kids are smart. He's like, why don't you let me ruin his life for a few weeks mm-hmm. and see if he's still devoted to you? And God's like, yeah, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And so they take this bet.
By your definition, that makes Satan not such a bad guy.
I have a high bar for evil.
That's interesting. I'm like, that sounds kind of bad. It sounds like the guy kind of sidling up to the senile old boss of the company, and it's just like,
that just sounds like the guys I used to work with, back in the old days.
Back in academia, it's just really, I think you should fire him. I think you should maybe not give him tenure. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens to him. But but it is that weird. It is. But
he's not an enemy. It's more like, you know what I mean? Like they're not. God's don't do that.
Yeah, it's not that. It's that crazy thing that's always to me about theology, Christianity, I suppose, and theology and stuff like that is this whole he created the world and then intentionally let it get fucked up. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, what? It just never really works for me. I just always am like, if that just doesn't make any sense, why would he do that? And I guess it's a paradox.
That's the problem of evil. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a paradox.
That's why some people just go, well, I'm going to be an atheist. It's like a deal breaker. All the misery is like a deal breaker.
Yeah, I actually think for a while that's what I was doing. I mean, I think that I just was like, it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't. And so the thing that made sense was atheism. And it also ended a conversation about this stuff, which was good because it was like if somebody
wanted in the family or something.
No, just anybody wanted to get into it with me, I'd just go, just sorry, atheist, and then they'd go, oh, okay, it would shut everybody up. It was a good way to just shut the whole thing down.
That's actually fun. That's funny. That might be the main virtue of it. You just drop it on people.
What's somebody going to do? Yeah. You just kind of go, yeah, sorry, no, buy anything.
Although you would be extra points in a conversion. So some people might be
That's
like,
true.
yeah, let's go.
Yeah, for sure. It was the people I was saying it to. But I also just think that I thought, no, it just nothing else makes any sense. But then I remember I was working on a movie, and there was a guy on the movie who was sort of an assistant to the director. He was a really interesting young guy. And we were talking about this stuff, and I said I was an atheist, and he was like, really? You're a strict materialist. You believe that there's you really do. And I was like, no, I can't actually say that. I do believe that there's something,
the spirit realm, or there's something else.
Which is interesting because, in the Church of Satan, do they believe in heaven and hell? Is it still the heaven and hell thing? Is it still are they atheists? You started this whole thing out by saying
yeah.
that basically they're atheists.
Yeah. And now we're talking about that precise organization that comes from the Anton LaVey and down to the present.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are just atheists. They have no additional metaphysics. But culturally, we know lots of Satanism before that, and still now even, that's much more metaphysical. They believe in heaven and hell, and they're trying to make a deal with the adversary, you know. So when I say Church of Satan is atheist, it's just that group.
Yeah.
What other people believe, I think, might be more insidious.
Might actually be that kind of stuff. But nobody's doing... Yeah.
When you were growing up, though, like in the 80s, do you remember there was a huge scare, like a satanic panic? Let's hear about
the
that.
80s. The 80s, Steve.
The satanic panic,
when we were both growing up. But at that time, yes, there was a whole panic that I think originally started around one school out in California, I think. It was a preschool, exactly. The McMartin School.
Schools were involved, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a whole thing. And it got into this whole area of recovered memory stuff.
But what did they say was happening? I think they said there was abuse, like sexual abuse.
Well, the children were saying, the kids were saying that there was all kinds of stuff going on and sacrificing animals. And then there were tunnels under the school and stuff like that. And they would get more and more Baroque. And then they were flying and stuff like that. I can't believe I remember all of this. It's like, what the fuck? What have I been doing with my life, Steve?
Yeah, don't you have like all these scripts?
Don't I have anything
you've memorized that just push it all
better
out?
To do? Like, what have I been doing? What have I been doing with my life?
Yeah, you know Shakespeare, for God's sakes.
Not really. No, I don't really, actually. I know this shit better. I know about the McMartin School scandal thing.
The tunnels.
And it was a mother and a son in the tunnels under the school. And it was a whole thing. It was a huge scandal. And then it was a kind of, I think it was the initial thing that then caused this sort of rash, this kind of panic.
It sort of caught on like a contagion, yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, it was tied to a lot of what I'm going to assume was sort of a new field in sort of psychotherapy and stuff with sort of recovered memory stuff.
Recovered memories,
which there's like all kinds of controversy about whether they're real, whether it's a real thing or not. And it's been discredited and not discredited. And you know, I don't know. And I suppose Freud was talking about all this stuff, really, right? I mean, it's like Freud
I think that's right.
You know, so it goes back to that. But anyway, so that happened. And I think the two of them went to prison. I think maybe the mother and the son did some jail time and stuff like that.
And then the theory was that you can, and this is not to discount any case that's actually happened, but there are cases, the memory is such that it can be led down the primrose path.
For sure. There's definitely all kinds of real things related to this stuff. But it's true because it is incredible the extent to which I know myself, when I play a part or something, I can create memories. I could, I can make up shit on the right off the bat about a character I'm playing. Sure, it's sometimes more so than other times, but like, sure, I could just start spinning shit out of my head about. It's like, and I notice more and more as I'm getting older, and I don't know if this is a sign of encroaching senility or not, but I do notice that so often I can find myself, if somebody says like, oh yeah, you remember that time when we were getting the ice cream cone and the dog jumped up and tried to get the ice cream, I'm making all this up. Somebody says, and the ice cream, and I'll just be going, maybe, I think maybe I do. And then it's like, now I don't know whether I do or not. And I find it's worse as I'm getting older, actually, which probably is a sign that my brain is softening. As in the old parlance of like, my brain is getting soft. Yeah, somebody just told me your brain shrinks as you get older. Did you know this?
Does it really? I didn't realize that. That's bad news.
Yeah,
that's not good news.
Your brain. I don't know, but maybe it is, Steve. I don't know. Maybe it'll squeeze out all that shit that we don't need.
That's right. There's no such thing as all bad or all good, Paul. There's some benefit, I'm sure, to having shrunken brain.
That's right. Well, I heard what I heard was a story about somebody getting a blow to the head, an older gentleman getting a blow to the head, and that he got a bleeding subdural bleeding, subcranial or something. I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know, bleeding
under
around
something.
the brain. Yeah, and that because he was old enough, his brain had shrunk enough that there was enough space between the cranium and the brain.
I'm sorry
matter.
to be laughing at this guy's misfortune.
No. Listen, this is all about comedy, this show, Steve. It's all about laughing at other people's misfortune. And so that there was enough that actually the brain bleed.
It helped him.
Yes, that actually the bleeding in the brain, it was allowed, somehow it was better than if it was sort of like pressing up against the...
It makes sense because that causes a lot of the trouble is the brain expands and then you get the loss of speech and you get these kind of stroke-like maladies as a result of that. And that's why they have to try to...
And it was amazing because this right, exactly. I was being told this story and he had to have a emergency brain surgery. And can you imagine that? Can you imagine being the guy who's like, you get the call and you're like, oh, gotta go, emergency brain surgery. I'll be right back. You know what I mean? It's like that's a lot of responsibility. My day is bad because I'm just like, my costume shoes are a little tight. Can we get some? I mean, those shoes I'm wearing to play President Roosevelt are too
You're
tight.
Playing the surgeon who has to go do it.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm tired. I can't. Oh, can somebody? The lights are too bright. I can't remember my lines. Oh, God damn it. And I thought to myself, this is fascinating because basically it's trepanning. It's trepanning, or however you say that
into the head, yeah.
Which was this
I've heard it both ways,
which is an ancient practice of drilling a hole in your skull.
Oh my God.
Look at that. I'm doing the hand drill gesture. I'm doing the like, and think about before somebody came up with a hand drill, somebody was just doing it with like a fucking stone awl, just like digging into your skull.
Jesus Christ.
Or like chipping, just like fucking, just like chipping a hole in your skull. That's an incredible thing. And people did it ritually all over the world, I think, in all different traditions.
There's evidence of it on old skull, like Neanderthal skulls and shit.
Yeah, like that, really on Neanderthal skulls too. That they were like
certainly certainly in early sapiens, but I think other hominids have it too. But I won't swear to that. But yeah, very early humans.
All right, I won't hold you to. I won't hold you to that, Steve.
I know that's going to come up a lot. The Neanderthal trepanning, and when it does, don't quote me.
Absolutely. God damn it, Steve. You said that Neanderthals trepanned themselves. Why are you fucking bullshitting me? But it is kind of incredible because the idea was to release evil spirits, was to release kind of, and so people who seemed to be probably crazy or people who maybe suffered from all different kinds of maladies.
Delusions and shit.
Maybe. And I'm not sure exactly when or why they did it. But they did do it.
And it helped then, right? Like it must have helped.
That's the thing that's actually really amazing about it is that apparently it helped. And I remember seeing once, again, I saw there's a film, there's a movie by some Dutch performance artist. I think it's a woman in the 60s, maybe a man, who trepans herself on camera.
I have heard of this woman.
Yes.
I've heard of this.
And I've seen it. Holy
Steve.
Shit. And with a power drill.
Oh.
And I'm like, that's really...
Where does she do it? Like here?
I can't remember.
I
don't remember. I think kind of like, I don't know whether she just randomly picked it or whether she was like,
And she survives it though, right?
She survives it. And she says she felt better. And and I know that other people in the modern trepanning movement, and if anybody's listening,
we are not recommending this.
No, we're not.
This is not an endorsement. Do not
major
do this.
Disclaimer: do not do this. Don't do it at home or anywhere. Don't do it anywhere, and don't let anybody do it to you.
Exactly.
But and I'm sure that there are people out there in the world doing it, and I think people claim that it makes them feel better.
I wonder if it's like, if you do it because you're trying to let demons out, but you actually relieve the pressure that's building up, you have accidentally healed yourself.
It must be. So there must have been some way in which it absolutely. It worked for people because it's like.
It's accidental medicine.
Accidental medicine, which is a good, I like that.
When I was in China, we did... I did a variety of things. When I was in Cambodia, they did the cupping thing where they like put the cups, they heat the cups and it sucks your back into the cup and it's really, but they also did this coining where they use a coin and they oil up your back and then they use coins and scrape these meridian lines on your back. So your back has all these pathways of, and then I've told you before about drinking turtle blood and other stuff, but I was thinking.
Sure. And you know what? I'm just going to let that go by.
Let's just let that fly on
I'm
by.
just going to let that slide. Yep. I remember you talking about drinking. Yes, Steve. I remember you talking about drinking turtle blood. Continue.
So I think that you might have stuff in these ancient medicines.
Oh, absolutely.
That really does help you, but you don't have a theory to connect yet.
Absolutely.
What it is yet.
Probably. Yet. Yeah, probably. I mean, acupuncture to me, absolutely.
Yeah, I've had benefits from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally have. And the cupping
what did you have it for? Like smoking or backaches or what?
Backaches, things like that. I had it when I had GERD, Steve.
What the fuck is GERD?
I'm going to admit here, I was about to say on national television. We're not on national television anymore, are we, Steve?
We have those numbers, though. We have the same numbers.
That's right. We've got national television numbers. That's right. I had GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disorder, Steve.
Oh, I think my brother had this. Yes,
what they call the acid reflux, and a long time ago. And I don't have it anymore. Probably for various reasons, but I definitely think that helped.
That helped.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, totally. I mean, I've never seen the thing where they perform open heart surgery on a guy, apparently. Have you ever heard about this? Where
by using acupuncture?
Yeah, apparently as an anesthetic. As a means of anesthetizing the guy. I think I've heard that it was true. And
that's not some Uri Geller shit, is it?
It's not. I don't. Uri Geller. Uri Geller's still out there.
Is he really? I thought he was long past.
No, I've seen that he's on social media.
He's the spoon bender.
Uri Geller, by the way, was a gentleman who claimed and still claims to have the ability to. Well, what are his powers? They're psychokinetic. They're sort of
he can move shit with his mind, he says. I'm very skeptical, but he would be on the Carson show every now and then.
All the time.
He'd be on the Carson show.
That's right. And I believe that he was debunked by the amazing Randy.
Yeah,
do you remember that guy?
Amazing Randy from the Skeptical Society.
The Amazing Randy was this really wonderful guy, James Randy.
He looked like Santa Claus.
He looked like Santa Claus. He was this tiny little elfin guy who was a magician. Actually.
Yeah, he was a great magician who trained, I think, Penn and Teller, or had a big influence on Penn and Teller.
Oh, I didn't know that. And so he would go around debunking psychics and things like that. And he debunked, I think, Uri Geller on the Carson show.
I think that's right.
But Uri Geller could bend spoons and things like that.
But back to psychic surgery, though.
But hold on. Okay. But here's my thing about Uri Geller. And I'm not saying I believe entirely that Uri Geller's doing it. But it's like, okay, you bend, let's say he's fake, he's got a fork and then he fake bends the fork. I'm like, how's he doing that though? If it's a trick, how the fuck is he doing it?
It's a magic trick that I would say look up the Penn and Teller stuff because I think they replicate it.
Okay.
They show that it can be done. It's not that hard, but as magic, it's still cool.
Yeah, it is still cool. Yes, it is. Anyway, you were talking about psychic surgery.
Well, there was a kind of psychic. You were talking about surgery with acupuncture. And I know there was this tradition. It came out of like the Philippines or something where people were doing a kind of, you've got a growth in you and I can take it out using my psychic surgery. And then they like have like a fake thumb with like giblets in it or like liver
giblets.
And then they
I think that's exactly what it was. I think, unfortunately, that's exactly what it was. I think it was giblets. Actually, no. And but yes, that's right. And there was all these fake psychic surgeons. But
I do believe in the power of the mind on the body. I think the mind has a lot more power than we think it does on the mind, on the body. Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely. No, absolutely. That whole mind-body connection thing.
Yeah.
Again, magic. It's a kind of magic. Yeah. It's a kind of ability to change reality. We've come full circle, Steve.
We are back all the way to the start of magic and Satanism.
Isn't that incredible? We're back at changing reality.
We covered a lot of ground here.
Changing reality with your mind. We really did, Steve. I'm actually surprised. I'm actually very, very surprised that we had that much shit in store in our heads.
Another successful chinwag. I hope anybody enjoyed this besides us.
Yes, I really do. Me too. I think everybody else is just off in slumberland, Steve.
They're looking up these great leads we've given them.
I hope so.
Crowley,
pleasant nightmares, folks. I see that there's a Satan con before we leave that there's a Satan con, Salem-based
really?
Satanic temple. I'm actually finally looking at my notes.
Oh, why bother?
I don't know why I'm bothering. Oh, we could have talked about Slender Man. We could have talked about. I'm finally looking at my notes.
That's
and
another
actually,
episode.
There is a Satan con, so we'll have to. Get on top of that sometime. Maybe we should go to Satan Con sometime.
That would be great. Let's go do a
little cosplay.
Chinwag.
Do a little cosplay. I'll dress as Baphomet. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Well, this has been great, Steve. Thank you for
Likewise, man.
Another
Thank
lovely
you
afternoon. Okay, man.
Okay, cheers.
Bye. Hello, Chinwaggers. If you enjoyed this scintillating episode, our dear friend and previous guest, Candace DeLong, has a very engaging, very heartwarming show called Killer Psyche. If you don't know of it, you should acquaint yourself with it because it's outstanding. Her episode on July 20th will talk even more about the Satanic Panic and the McMartin preschool trial. You can find Killer Psyche anywhere you get your podcasts, same as us. Enjoy.
Chinwag is a production of Treefort Media and Touchy Feely Films. Hosted and executive produced by Paul Giamatti and Stephen Asma. Executive producers for Treefort are Kelly Garner and Lisa Ammerman. Dan Carey is executive producer for Touchy Feely. Our series producer is Rachel Whitley Bernstein. Our associate producer is Andrew Miller. Original theme music by Luke Topp with additional music by Via Mardot. Oscar Guido is our executive in charge of production. Tom Monahan is head of audio for Treefort. Animation created by Alex Sokol. Audio production, supervision, and editing by Maxwell Carney. Additional audio assistance and mixing by Jeff Neal. With additional production management from Renee Levesque. Clara Wong is Celestial Empress of Benevolent Knowledge. Lastly, for more information, go to chinwagpod.fm and find us on Instagram or TikTok at chinwagpod or on Twitter at chinwag_pod.